Darius braced. He stood just as he had been trained to by his white blood doctor from the day he could walk. His red eyes narrowed, as the clatter of swords and the screams of his fellow Red Guards became masked by the din of his own heartbeat. A rush of air resonated with each exhale of breath, as his focus remained on the Black Blood Rider. Darius did not know the name of this mounted warrior. His black eyes and long black hair were foreign to him, and as his light armor flexed with the rhythm of the horse, he discharged a shrill cry in a language that Darius did not understand. In comparison, the Red Guard's armor was heavy and stagnant in the arid air. His red-crested helmet shimmered in the merciless sun, as the red desert sand grasped at his disfigured brow. The blood that had splattered onto his face had dried in an instant. His throat was parched, his eyes were sore, and the wound in his side burned with ferocity. However, he knew that as the mounted warrior's black horse cut a line through the spirited desert sand, he would get just one opportunity to bring his enemy's charge to an immediate halt. He had to stay focused. The mounted Black Blood Rider gripped the reins in one hand, and aimed his sword, poised to strike with the tip. This worked well for Darius, as the chance that the mounted Black Blood would make a successful strike had diminished. He smirked, as the clueless rider continued to close the gap. Darius dropped to his knees, and further reduced his enemy's target. He glared into the black eyes of the rider, his horse so close, Darius was sure he could feel the snorts of the animal against his skin. He positioned his sword to strike the horse's front legs, ready to force the beast into a sudden and unfortunate halt. Darius knew a successful strike could stop the horse and rider, but one executed with inaccuracy could bring the animal down on top of him. As Darius prepared to counteract the sword's bite of the horse's flesh, the mounted rider jumped upward. His toes perched on the back of the saddle before he leapt into the air with the grace of a grasshopper. Darius's sword remained untouched, as the once very real horse turned to a black, smoky silhouette. The smoke washed over the blade of the sword, as the beast charged on, undisturbed by the Red Guard in its path. Darius looked upward as the black blood loomed in the air above him, his sword aimed at the captivated Red Guard. With almighty strength, the black blood forced the sword through the tight gap between Darius's helmet and cuirass, deep into the base of his neck. With the full weight of the black blood behind the attack, the sword tore its way through flesh and bone with little resistance. The rider used the momentum this maneuver had provided, to leap again. This time he launched from the handle of the sword, which further compounded the strike, as it forced the sword into Darius's heart. The Black Blood Rider landed in the saddle of his unabated horse and spurred the creature back into a sprint. The Red Eagle embedded into the handle of Darius's sword, let out a cry, as it slipped from his hand. Like a slain bear, Darius dropped to the floor, unable to draw the strength to stand, before he collapsed onto his back. He looked to the sky above him, and the gods who had been left with no choice but to punish Ritus for her disobedience. As Darius lay in the blooded sand, the black blood sword still embedded deep into his core, and the bodies of his fellow Red Guards scattered around, one thought prevailed. The ruins of Ritus belonged to no man, the ruins of Ritus were for the gods alone. They had made that perfectly clear. When the blood debts are due, and their mentors must die, will they obey the gods, or will they fight for justice? Suus in sanguine. It's in your blood. Residuum of Ravenstone. Book 1 of the epic fantasy series, The Ruins of Ritus. Visit the website for more information.